Hey everybody, it's Dina Rico with the Creativity Cave, and look at these stunning watercolor cards that I've created. I can't wait to show you how easy it is to create truly beautiful watercolor cards like this. I've got a bunch of really helpful tips so that you can get really amazing and dramatic results just like this. Okay, so let's get started. First off, I'm using the All That You Are stamp set from Stampin' Up. This is in our Occasions catalog. It will be available just for another 5 weeks or so. It's going to retire at the end of June. So if you don't have this one, I highly recommend picking it up. And some people don't know this. This flower here and this flower here actually coordinate with the First Frost framelits, which a whole bunch of you guys have. So I thought I'd mention that. Now, on my card here, I've got 2 different cards, and the first card kind of is a result, or the first card I made, and then the second card is a result of a failed attempt to finish off the first card. So I'll explain what I mean as we go. I'm going to start with a piece of watercolor paper, and I'm going to drop my embossing buddy on here so that I can treat this. And then I will stamp my image, this large floral image, with some Versamark ink. And then we're going to heat emboss it with my gold embossing powder. So I'm just going to kind of put this on here about like that. Okay. And then I wanted to have a little more design down here. So I took that single flower that I mentioned, there's a framelit for in another set, and I'm just going to stamp that down here. Then I'm also going to add the little solid branch in a couple of spots on either side. Okay, and then we're going to take this whole piece and use my gold embossing powder to get powder on there, and then we'll heat emboss. And one of the things that I love about watercoloring with embossed images is that the embossing kind of holds things in place. So it's really handy. So I'll go ahead and get this heated. I love to emboss with watercoloring. Like I said, it adds such a pretty touch to do like gold or silver, so a metallic is really nice, and white is also one of my favorites. I don't actually emboss with black all that often because I figure I can stamp in it, so I don't know. And for a long time, Stampin' Up! Didn't actually carry black embossing powder, but we've got it back in stock. Okay, so now let's get the magic going. First of all, whenever I watercolor, I like to use a burp rag. And this is one I've had for a long time. And I like the burp rag because I can clean my water brush off with it. So this is our aqua painter, and I love using aqua painters for watercoloring. Now I have a really pretty color palette. I've got Calypso Coral, Melon Mambo, Blackberry Bliss, Crushed Curry, and Old Olive. So kind of a nice combination of colors, I should say, and let me get rid of that. So we'll get these colors in here, and when you squeeze the ink pad to the lid, you get color in here. I also, in this one, dropped a drip of water of re-inker. Okay, so let me show you how I'm going to do this. First of all, I'm going to start with the biggest flower, and I'm going to start with some Calypso Coral. I want the base of each petal to have the darkest color. Just get that fuzz out of there. So I want this to be really nice and dark at the base, and then it'll get lighter as it goes to the top. Now the key for watercoloring something like this, where I really want nice, vibrant color, is to make sure you've got plenty of ink in the lid of your ink pad. And if you can't get enough ink, go ahead and add some re-inker so that you can really get that nice, rich color. All right, now I'm going to take, and I clean my brush off a little bit so it's pretty light. I'm going to go up top and then just kind of blend the colors. Now, one thing that's kind of fun is you don't have to do every little bit. Like, do you see I left some white space there? I think that's kind of the key to having some beautifully watercolored images, is not being afraid to leave a little white space. So you can see that these are really light at the top, and we're going to add some more color to this, so they'll probably darken up as we go, but I think what's really striking about watercolor too is when you get a nice gradation of color too. So it's really dark in some areas and much lighter in others. Okay, so far I like my flower. It's very pretty. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing at the bottom flower. So I'm going to add that dark, rich color at the bottom. And like I said, don't be afraid if you need to put a little re-inker, like a drip of re-inker into your ink pad lid, or you can do it on a block or on a piece of plastic, whatever. Don't be afraid to do that, so you can get some nice rich colors going. So we're going real dark at the base. So pretty. Okay, that looks good. And just like before, I'm gonna kind of blend that color out, and I'm gonna leave some white space on each of them. And if you like blender pens, I should say our Stampin' Blends, not blender pens, pardon me, Stampin' Blends, the method of coloring is similar. So if you feel comfortable with Stampin' Blends, chances are you'll do amazing at watercoloring. Okay, so I've got my two flowers kind of set up. Now, what happened when I made my original card is I went to do these areas in my Melon Mambo. And so I put some nice dark color at the base of each of these. And then I went back and I wanted to add a little bit more color to my big flower. And I forgot to clean my brush, so I just added some of this Melon Mambo to the base of each flower, and I loved the look of it. It kind of added an extra little bit of kind of color, and layering those colors on really was awesome. So I went with it, as you can see. So I'm adding some Melon Mambo to the base of these. And I think you're going to agree that it adds a nice touch. It's a pretty color to mix those two, okay? And I'm just going to blend them a little bit more. But I like having that pink mixed in with the coral. I think it's really a nice look. And part of watercoloring is knowing what colors to use. As far as adding layers of color and choosing colors that look nice together. That's a good part of watercoloring. Okay, so that looks pretty good so far. I'll bring this up. So isn't that pink kind of mixed in with the coral pretty? I really like it. All right, next up, I'm going to do a little bit of yellow on these, whatever these are. They're probably forget-me-nots, which are probably supposed to be blue, but I don't care because in my picture, they're yellow, and it makes me happy. And then I'm also going to put a little bit of yellow kind of at the tip of each of those little flowers. So we've kind of got that going on. That all looks good. Clean my brush off, and then I'm going to pick up my olive. So we'll add some olive darker areas to this vein business. There's veins over here. And then just like our flowers, we'll blend things out with a clean brush and then do the rest of the greenery. Now, the other thing is I'm being careful when I have a vastly different color. I don't want to intermingle those two colors because then I'll get kind of a muddy mess. And the nice thing is that the embossing kind of houses it. It keeps it from running. But if you have too much water, that definitely can run if you're not careful. So just be aware of that. Then I'm just going to kind of color that in lightly. Same thing here. You don't want to intermingle those because green plus pink equals ugly, just in case you weren't sure about that. Okay, so that looks pretty good. I'm just going to add a little bit more color on these leaves, just kind of at the base, just so they're nice. And then I'm also going to add a little color over these, just so it's a little bit of pretty. Now here's where my next step is really what kind of makes this, I think, go from nice to awesome, is I'm going to add some Blackberry Bliss. Now a little bit of this goes a long way, but I'm just putting some Blackberry Bliss on the little stamen in each of these flowers, and that dark, 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 almost black center is awesome. Okay, so that's so dark. And I even put just a touch of it down here. Oh, how cool is that? Now those colors are just so beautiful and rich. So I really love the look of everything. Now I'm not happy with the look of these two petals right here. There's just kind of they're not blended out nice. So I'm going to come back in and soften those lines up so they look pretty or prettier. I think that looks good. Of course, sometimes when you do that, you lose your white space, but that's the price you pay. Okay, and this one needs a little more dark color in there. Yeah. All right, so I'm pretty happy with that. I think that looks pretty awesome. All right, now one more thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to take and pick up a little bit of my crushed curry. I'm getting the water to flow in my brush, just a little, not a ton. Then I'm going to smack this against my finger to spritz, okay? And depending on how wet your brush is, you're going to get more or less watermarks. So I've got a few on there and I'm happy with that. Then I'm going to change and do a little bit with my Calypso coral, same thing. And I've got a little spritzing on there, not a ton, just a little bit. You can see you've got some speckles. A lot of the speckles are actually where I'm going to cover this, but that's all right. Okay, that looks pretty good. The next thing that I'm going to do is add my sentiment. Now, I pre-embossed this on another scrap of my watercolor paper, and this will just go right over the top here. And it's so pretty. And then I'm going to show you how I made another card, kind of by accident. So, all right, so that looks wonderful. Now I have a card base of Calypso coral, and I thought of adding another layer, but I didn't like the look of the layer, but I thought this was too plain. So I took and just added a larger panel of watercolor paper. And I'll have the dimensions for all of this in the description of this video because I forgot to measure this before I kind of got going. So I'll just adhere these two layers together and then adhere this to my card. And that's all that there is to this. So it really is easy. Now I will tell you, if you have not got a lot of experience in watercolor, don't be afraid, but practice. Just give it a couple tries, heat emboss a couple things or stamp some things in black stays on, and then give it a try. But the key to watercoloring is to do it on watercolor paper. That is the biggest, most important thing. Okay, now this is beautiful, but let's take it up one more notch, shall we? I'm going to do my favorite, which is my alcohol and shimmer paint, champagne shimmer paint mist spritzer. Okay, so I'm just gonna spritz this from about 12 inches 2-3 times, and then I get amazing shimmer all over my beautiful card. Okay, I'm going to set this aside, and I'm going to show you how I made a really cool background. Okay, so to do this, I'm going to cover up my workspace here. And this was actually what I intended, and I'll bring my sample back in so you can see. This was actually what I intended for my card, my original card, but when I put it on there, I didn't like how it looked. It was too much. So that's why I went with a plain embossed piece. But I really liked what I made. It just wasn't right for the card. So here's what I did. I started just kind of streaking on some of the same colors that I was using, and just kind of blended them into one another like so. And the look that I got was just fantastic. I really liked how pretty it was. It was vibrant, really looked good with these colors together. So I thought, ooh, there is something going on here that I am digging. It was just so pretty. And then I think you'll agree when I add the blackberry, it was like really striking. Okay, so you can see that's getting kind of light, so I'm coming back in with a little more color. And there we go. Isn't that gorgeous? So I just kind of got some of that streaky color. Again, I started with gold embossed. And again, this is watercolor paper. That's really the key. Okay, and I'm just going to rinse my brush out a little bit here. Add a little more color. Wherever you want it to be vibrant, just keep on adding. And that looks pretty good to me. Isn't that just nice, rich, beautiful color? Okay, so I'm going to heat this. Not so much that I melt the embossing powder, but so that it just dries. Because I'm impatient, let's be honest. Okay, that looks like we're getting there. But again, not so much that I melt the powder again. We don't want to do that. All right, I'm also going to spritz this one with my spritz because everything's better spritzed. Oh, so pretty. Shimmer, shimmer, shimmer makes me happy. All right, now to put this card together, I'm going to go ahead and adhere this to a layer of gold foil. And then I wanted to add some gold metallic thread, but it turns out I didn't have any. So I'm going to use some, I don't even know what color this is, the pink. I don't know if this is called rose gold or I don't know what this color is, but it's the metallic thread that's pink. Okay, now I wanted my background to have something on it because that's a little bit boring. So what I did, and let's get rid of a couple of these. What I did is I just took my Versamark and stamped that large image on here a couple of times to create a pretty background. That was really nice and subtle, so it didn't stick out too much. And really, depending on how wet your Versamark pad is, you'll get a little bit lighter or darker final image. I know my Versamark is kind of newer. I don't want to say new because it's not new, but it's still pretty good and juicy, so that works out awesome. And then I'll just fill in a little bit on the sides with this single flower, likewise up here. And one more right there. Okay, so that gives me a nice design in the background of my card. And then I'm going to add my metallic thread. For that, I'll take a little bit of snail and just kind of put that down like so. And then I just want to get my thread in that adhesive, and then it'll hold pretty nicely. So I'll wrap my, oops, there we go. I'll wrap my thread around here several times so I can get kind of a cool little metallic shimmer going on here. And then I want the end to just get into that snail once more. I'll snip that off. And then we'll pop this panel up right over the top. Because, of course, dimensionals are like the best. All right, guys, I hope you've loved this. If you need any of these supplies, especially this stamp set, please shop my online store. I have an awesome VIP rewards program, including a fabulous VIP Facebook group that I would love to welcome you to. And all you have to do to get involved is shop through my online store. So thanks, guys. Happy stamping and have a great evening. Bye-bye.